Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. We are going into the end of Jesus's last moments, the end of his life. And so we're going to look at chapter 22 this morning. And it's actually 71 verses long. It is a very long chapter. And we have a lot going on here, but for many of us, there's a lot of familiarity to it. There's a lot of pieces and parts that we're very familiar with. And it's good for us just to remember all that was happening in a very short amount of time. Jesus took on a lot right here in these last few moments. And so we're going to see that today in these 71 verses. We're not going to take all day to look at it. But what we begin with today is that it is now the Passover. And this is the marking that his death is to come, to be fulfilled. And it's really interesting to me because this is one of the theological conversations that I've had many times in my life of what's the whole thing with Judas? What's the whole thing with Judas? But according to Luke, in verse 3, it actually says, "Then Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot, who was one of the 12. And then it simply says that he went away and conferred with the chief priests and officers of the temple, and he began the process of betraying Jesus." And so, it's like there's this change that happens, or this temptation that happens, and Judas falls for it, or willingly decides to go along with it. And what makes it complicated is that Jesus time and again says that he must be betrayed in order for everything to go the way it's supposed to go. He has to be betrayed. And so why does poor Judas get picked? It's one of those things. But I think what it comes down to is that any one of us at any time can make a decision contrary to what we've been doing our whole lives. And we become betrayers of our families. We become betrayers of our spouses. We betray our children. We betray our friends. And it just takes one decision that can bring it all crumbling down. And even one of those who has given up his life, sacrificed everything for Jesus, one mistake can bring everything crumbling down. And so it's kind of one of those heavy moments where we realize what Judas set into motion with his one action. And so then we find that the disciple, Jesus says it's time to have our Passover meal, and he leads them as to how they will find the place where they will have their meal. And for Luke, he immediately, verse 14, goes in to the institution of the Lord's Supper. And so this is where he shares the wine. And we find that he talks about the cup. He then breaks the bread, and then he then shares the wine. And so it's this just beautiful moment he shares with his disciples. And again, I think it's important for us to know that he's sharing this with Judas in the process. He knows what's going on here. He's aware that that his betrayer, is at his table. And yet he still offers everything and his all. And then in this particular version, Luke's version, this is then when the disciples start having a little conversation about who's going to be greater. And Jesus reminds them that they are here to be servants. They are here to serve others, to serve one another. They are not here to be greater. But their kingdom is an eternal kingdom. And so they need to remember where their place is. I think we all have those moments. Got to remember, what's my place again? And then, of course, we have then Peter saying that, I will go to the death with you. I am ready to go. And Jesus, again, is in his kind of predicting mode. And he says, before the next day, you're going to have denied me 3 times. And, it's probably pretty disheartening for Peter to hear that. Like, he thinks he is strong. He thinks he's faithful. He would never betray his Savior. And yet, here, there's this little, what's going to happen? Jesus then reminds them that he sent them out at one point in time with with only a purse, without a purse, a bag, or sandals. And he asks in verse 35, "Did you lack anything?" And they said, "No, not a thing." And so, but he says, now is the time to take your purse. Now is the time to take your bag. And actually, it's time to grab your sword. And so now is kind of the time that they need to fight for what they believe. To know that they have what they've already had an accumulation of what they need. They've built up what they need to be able to do this. But what I love about it? The disciples say, "Oh, well, we have 2 swords right here." And Jesus says that's enough. It's enough. Like, he's not going out to start a war. But he does need to have a little bit of protection because he realizes what's happening. Or he realizes that his followers need protection. But he doesn't go out and say, "Hey, let's build up an army." He goes, okay, 2 swords will be enough for, the 12 of us technically, because Judas is going to run off. But he's going to be like, that's enough. So it's more just for protection, not for fighting. I think that's important to recognize. So then we have this wonderful moment, and I say wonderful, but it's because he goes and prays. I love seeing Jesus going off and praying. But in verses 39 through 46, he's asking to have this cup taken away from him. He's like, is there anything else can we do this a different way? Does it have to end this way? And yet his prayer, he's able to show his not wanting to do something. He's able to show his pain, his anxiety, his frustration. I mean, we see that he's sweating blood. Like, he's really nervous and not feeling well about this. But it's through that prayer, through naming what he doesn't want, the naming his fear, that he also receives the strength that he needs to go through with it. And I think that's so important for Christians to realize, that there are things we don't want to do sometimes, and we just need to take them to God in prayer and be like, I don't think I can do this. This is too much. It's everything. But then it's in that same prayer that you will receive the strength you need to do it. And it's a powerful moment here, very powerful, that we can complete our ministries if we'll just take our worries and our fears to God first. And so then the plot, it's no longer thickening. It's on the move. And so Judas arrives, and of course, the way that he betrays Jesus is with a kiss. The most friendly, the most intimate thing that they could exchange between one another was this kiss on the cheek. And that's how he is betrayed. And so and Jesus points that out. He's like, man, that's cruel. That is cruel. And so we have this one little moment where then somebody pulls a sword. This is the time we need our swords. And then he cuts a slave's ear off. And Jesus goes, whoa, 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 whoa. Stop. And he heals the man. Just like that. He heals him. And there's this moment of like, this isn't, maybe I got too far. But Jesus was like, nope, that's not what we want. And so he heals him. And then he's taken off to the high priest. And it's in this moment that while Jesus is at the high priest, Peter's hanging around outside in the courtyard, and his denial happens. He denies Jesus 3 times. He's like, I don't know who that guy is. I'm not connected to that guy. I don't know what you're talking about. And then they have that famous rooster crow, and then Peter weeps bitterly, for he has realized what he has done. And then as we kind of come to the conclusion of this chapter, Jesus has to go through this humiliation of being mocked and questioned, and just they're finally at their game of twisting his words and just throwing everything back into his face. And so we find that they're ready to take him to Pilate, which will be in the next chapter. They're like, he has proven that he is against the kingdom, against Caesar. What they are really trying to do with Jesus is saying that he is a threat to the empire that exists on earth. And, and Jesus is like, no, because my kingdom's in heaven. I have a kingdom. But they use that and they twist it and put it against him. And they're at their point now. And they've got everything they need now to crucify Jesus. And so it's a pretty intense chapter. There's a lot. But from what I gather this morning, at least where I am in my life right now, the importance of this prayer time, of taking all of our worries, all of our concerns to God, and we will be given the strength to carry on. We will be given the strength to keep doing the work of God's kingdom now. And so I hope that you can find encouragement in that today. And that'll carry us through till tomorrow. And I just thank you for joining me today with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotions. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a fantastic day.